Hello again, ECEC friends and family. It's Tara Carlson, one of the speech language pathologists with the school district. Today I thought I would send you a video about how to get your preschooler to make those difficult speech sounds that they may be struggling with. So I need you to know first off that I'm not going to cover all the dozens and dozens of speech sounds that are in the English language. I'm only going to be focusing on those speech sounds that we would expect a 3 or 4-year-old to have mastered. Okay, so that means we're not going to touch that tricky R. That doesn't come until 1st or 2nd grade. We're not going to worry about that. Your child may have difficulty with the L sound or the ch sound. Those are also later developing. They're not something that we will worry about as a preschool student. Now, if your child gets to be a 1st or 2nd grader and they're still having multiple speech sound errors, that would be something to bring up with your child's speech language pathologist. However, during the 3 and 4 year range, we're not going to worry about those. So I will just be focusing on the early developing phonemes. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Our first sound is the H sound, and the visual phonics gesture for this is just it just kind of shows the air coming out. So it's just a breathy sound. If your child has a hearing impairment, this may be a very difficult sound for them to be able to hear because it's not a very loud sound. There's not a lot of friction to the sound. So the good thing about it is though that it's a tactile sound. You can feel it. So one of the ways that you can have them work on it is to blow on their hand. Blow, you hold your hand up, they blow on it, you blow on it, and then vice versa. Switch hands back and forth with them blowing on your hand and you blowing on their hand as you produce this sound. Another way that kids love to do this sound is to hold a tissue up in front of their face and then you and see if you can get the tissue to blow, and then they hold up a tissue in front of their face and they see if they can get that tissue to go. And that's the way, a fun way to elicit this sound. Another thing that you can do is whisper. H's come out really easily when you are whispering. Okay, so that would be the different cues for our letter H. Let's talk about the W sound. The visual phonics gesture for the W is just a circle around your lips, and it's just drawing attention to the fact that your lips are very rounded when you're making the W sound. So it's wah, wah. That's the visual phonics symbol. Some fun ways that you can work on this with your child is that you can do the blowing a kiss gesture. So, but you can switch it to wah, wah. You can also use this to ask for the bubble wand. So you can have them wah, wah. And there's a little bit of air that comes out, so you can have them facilitating some bubble activities with that. Another way to get their lips rounded in the right position would be to use a straw. If you have a straw at home, they can put their lips around a straw, wah, wah, and get that, okay? So those are some ways that you can work on that wah, W sound. Let's talk about the P sound. So this is what we call a lip popper. That would be a good way to explain this to your child. The visual phonics gesture for this is p, p. We're showing how the lips hold the air and then they blow it out. This is another great sound to work on if you've got a tissue and you're seeing if you can pop that tissue away from your face. If your child is making what we call a voicing error, so maybe they're saying ba, ba, have them whisper, and that turns that voice off and makes them aware that they can do the same motion, but with their voice off. So ba, ba becomes So those are some great ways that you can elicit the P sound. The B sound is very similar to the P sound. It's produced the same way with our mouth. The only difference is our voice is turned off for P and on for B. The visual phonics gesture is this for B. B, B. You can have your child even have their hand here so that they can feel the vibration of their vocal cords, and you can do B, B. The cue that we give them is to put your lips together. Hold the air, put your lips together. Now, B, B. Now, of course, when we're doing the actual speech sound in speech, we don't say b-oy for boy. But for the time being, we're just trying to get them to get their lips in the right position and that voice turned on as we blow the air out. Letter M is another early developing speech sound. In fact, it's one of the sounds that is found nearly universally in all world languages. And the thought is that it is a nutritive sound, meaning that this is one of the sounds that babies make from their earliest days as they are eating. And so it's our sound. All babies make that sound. And so the difficulty that our preschoolers sometimes have is getting that lip closure, getting their lips together to produce it. So the visual phonics symbol that we use for it is very similar to the symbol for eat in sign language. We just hold that and we say, showing that our lips are together and all that air is staying in. If you remember when we did P, it came out because the air comes out. But for the M, the air stays in there. We don't blow it out. So we go, for letter M. We again just cue them to keep their lips together. We say that this is the yummy tummy, so we might give a little rub on our tummy and say, it's so good. Another cue that you can give your child is to hum. This is what we do with our mouth when we're humming. So we keep our lips together, and we're keeping that air in. So that's how we would produce the letter M. Now let's talk about the letter N. So this visual phonics gesture is our finger across our nose because it's a nasal sound, and sometimes you can even feel it a little bit in your nose. So we just do It's also very visual. They can see that your tongue is up there behind your front teeth. And that's how we would show them that sound. If your child is struggling with the N, but maybe they've got a good T sound, we could even use the word don't, because our tongue is up there for the D sound, the N sound, and the T sound. So it's a good word to work on to get all of those sounds all together, because that tongue doesn't really have to move very much at all. Another fun way to get this is to do the way old Batman theme song, the na 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 Batman. So we can get really silly with that, and that just keeps that tongue doing a pretty quick movement up there at that what we call, it's the alveolar ridge, is that ridge of the roof of your mouth right behind your front teeth. That is where we want that tongue to be rubbing up against and making contact for our letter N. Let's move on to our letter T. So this is what we call our tapping sound. So when we do our visual phonics gesture, it's just a t, t, t. We're doing this with our finger to show our child that it is a quick movement, and it just taps right up there behind our teeth, the same as the N. So that's on what we call the alveolar ridge. And so it's it's not as visual as the N, because with the N, we can keep our mouth a little bit more open and still get the same sound. So T is also very fleeting. It is very quick. So they really have to be watching. Sometimes for the N and for the T, really for most of the letters that we've worked on so far, having a mirror handy is very helpful. I oftentimes suggest that parents work on these while they're brushing their teeth or washing hands, and everybody is looking in the mirror, washing their hands and watching what their mouth is doing. So that would be a great time to work on very specific speech sound elicitation. All right. Another thing that you can do is if your child is putting in a D sound for the T, we can do that same skill of whispering to produce that. Not that you will always have them whisper, but just to get them into the pattern of, I can produce this sound correctly if I whisper it. The partner sound to T is D. And so the tongue is placed in the exact same spot. So it's right there behind your front teeth. The visual phonics gesture for T is the tapping, and the visual phonics symbol for D is the dotting. So we're going to do D, D, D. Again, your teeth are pretty close together, so it's not the easiest sound to see, but if you're using a mirror, you can certainly show your child that your tongue goes up, D. So you go up, and then you can bring your teeth back together to produce the sound. Just show them that that's where their tongue goes, and then you can bring those teeth back together to produce the sound. I have had some parents that have had some success with putting a little bit of frosting or some peanut butter, if your child doesn't have an allergy, something up there right behind those front teeth so the child has kind of a sensation of where their tongue should go. We don't get to do that type of stuff at school because then everybody would be on a sugar rush, and that's not necessarily the most helpful thing for concentration. But that would be something that you could do at home that we don't necessarily have ready access to at school for the letter D sound. So you might have noticed that some of our sounds kind of come in groups. The P, B, and M sound are all made in the same place. So those are kind of a family. And then the T, D, and N sound are also all made on that alveolar ridge. So they're kind of a family. So what you'll notice is that sometimes your child will be working on all three of those sounds together because the error is their error is the same and the placement is the same. And so you can get pretty good bang for your buck if you start focusing on some of those, and it sometimes will just generalize right to the other sounds. A tip that I would give you is if you're just starting to work on these sounds with your kids, I would work on the M for the what we call bilabial, which means two lips. I would work on the M sound for the M, B, and P family simply because you can hold on to it. Lasts much longer than P. Okay, same thing for the N, T, and D family. I would start with the N because you can hold on to it and really model that for your child while they work to get their speech sound production tools into place in their mouth. Okay, so that would be another tip that I would give you for those speech sounds. All right, next we'll talk about the tricky K and G. So these sounds are some of the most frequently worked on in the preschool population. They are tricky because they're not as easily seen as the P, B, and M and T, D, and N because they are at the back of the throat. You can't as easily see them. So I will give you some tips and tricks, and let's see if we can get it going for your child. So the visual phonics symbol for K is K, K. You're just showing your child that that sound is made at the back of the mouth by tapping your throat. Okay. Another thing that you can do that I've had some success with, let's see if you can do the same thing. We tell the kids that this is their magic finger, and the magic finger only works if it stays dry. And if it gets wet, it loses all of its magic. And so then we have the kids, of course, wash their hands before you get started with this. But then you talk to them about the magic finger, and then you have them put it in their mouth, right there on that alveolar ridge that we've talked about previously, right there on that bump of the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And they can't get it wet, so that tongue has to stay way, way back. And so most kids, if they're making an error on their K, they're pushing it forward and doing what we call fronting, and they're putting the back sound at the front of their mouth. So they're producing t for cookie. And so if we tell them to put their magic finger in there and don't get it wet, that forces them to push that tongue in the back of their mouth. So we do put your magic finger in, cookie. Oh, is it still dry? Oh, yay, it still has magic. You can make it into a really big thing, okay? Another technique that is highly successful is using, if your child will allow you to, a tongue depressor to keep their tongue tip down. Now, at the preschool, when we do this, we have flavored tongue depressors. So they get to pick if they want cherry or grape or fruit punch or what sort of flavor they want. You probably aren't that lucky at home, but maybe you could, soak it in some sugar water or something so that it's a little bit sweet. And so what you do then for that is you place the tongue depressor and hold the tongue tip down as you have them do key, key, key. So key is great because that E sound is also, it's pretty close to where the K sound is made in the mouth. So you would just hold the tongue depressor on the tip of the tongue, key, 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 and keep the tongue from going T, T. You're holding it from doing that. At first, there may be quite a bit of resistance, but in my experience, typically, even just within 2 or 3 minutes, that resistance, they're like, oh, if I stop fighting you on that, then if my tongue stops trying to do push-ups against that tongue depressor, it's easier and I make the right sound. So it's a pretty readily available, quick response, sort of a change that you can make with your child. The other thing that you can do with your child for the K sound is you can have them lay down on their back and get really relaxed and lay there and let their tongue fall. So talk to them about, like, let your feet fall to the side, let your hands fall to the side, lay on your back and get really relaxed, and then let your tongue fall. Your tongue goes all the way back and you go That is a way that you can get the K sound and the G sound. Another way that I've found that I can help the kids is to do a coughing sound. Sometimes just that simple gesture will get them going. Another way that you can do is you can try a bit of a rooster sound. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that would be another set of cues you could give them. The last sound that I use, or the last little reminder that I use with them, is sometimes this is the mad kitty sound. Or I guess it could be a crashing car. If you've got a child that's into that type of a play and you hear them producing that sound when their toys are crashing or a kitty cat is mad, capitalize on it. Use it to facilitate the speech sound production for your child. Okay, so the sister sound to the K sound is the G sound. So all of the cues are going to be pretty much the same. It's just that this time their voice is turned on. So for the visual phonics, we do g, g, g to produce that. Instead of the coughing sound, we call this the drinking sound. And so I tell my kids, g, 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 g. We'll get them going on that G sound. The G is also good for a grrr. Have them growl and see if that backed R can get that G sound to come. Grrr, grrr. I think that's all I've got for K and G. It's a tough one, so don't feel defeated if it doesn't come easily. You can do the magic finger for both of them. You can have them lay on their back for both of them. You can do the tongue depressor for both of them. But I will tell you, it is a trickier, more difficult sound just because they can't see it as easily. Let's move on to the F sound. So the F sound for visual phonics, we just point to our chin because it's so visual. So we just do this. when I'm cueing the kids with words, I tell them this is the bite and blow sound. It's a great sound to do in front of the mirror because it is highly visible. So I tell them to bite and blow. I know that this is over exaggerated and that's not the way that we produce it when we're actually in running speech, but we're just trying to get a new pattern set for where to produce the sound, where to place the articulators for the sound. So it's okay if we're way over exaggerating the placement for right now. Sometimes this sound is called a lip cooler because you're blowing air over the lip. But for my most successful tactic for this one, it's really just the bite and blow with them looking in a mirror so that they can see it. As with the other sounds, if this one, the error is a voicing, so they're saying you're funny instead of funny, then you can just have them whisper it and get that voice turned off while they're producing the sound to kind of break the pattern and get a new habit going for that one. Okay, so that would be some tips and tricks for the letter F. Now for letter S, it's not necessarily a sound that we worry about in terms of developmentally appropriate. I know that many of our kids produce this sound at this age with a bit of a frontal lisp. So that tongue is sticking out just a little bit and they're saying things like sixth instead of six. And that's okay. That is a developmentally appropriate error into kindergarten. So we're not going to worry about that. Most kids by the end of kindergarten, their tongue has slid back. We tell them sometimes to close their gate. And that means to bring your teeth together and then that tongue can't get through and so it stays back. But this isn't something to worry about necessarily with your preschooler in terms of if their tongue is sticking out a little bit or not. Don't worry about that. The times that we work on S is if we're focusing on S blends. So some of you know that we do this as our visual phonics gesture for S. So if we're working on ST blends, we would say stop, stop. So we use those two symbols together to show that the sounds come together. Another gesture that we use a lot with S blend work is we use our hand and we say snack. And one of the techniques that I use a lot for this is it's almost like a chaining sort of a task. So you take the word without the S sound. So if we're going to do stop, we would just do top. And I would have the child have their hand out and tap their hand as well. Top, top, top. And we would practice that. We would prime the pump is what we call it. We get that pump going. We get the articulators ready for that kind of routine of where they're going to move. So we do top, 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 top. And if they've lost it and they're doing sop, sop, then we stop again and we do top, 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 top. And that little break kind of lets them get ready for it. And then we can go back to smooth. Stop, stop. So that's one of the ways that I really find success with getting those S blends to go is sometimes when we're practicing, we leave that S off at first and we just practice the rest of the word and then we add the S blend. Now, many of your preschoolers are to the point where they can do this at the word level. They are stop, stop, stop all day long, but then they go to use it some other time during the day and it's back to top or it's back to sop. So what we do then is we start working on, so you've got it in the word, now let's do it in the phrase. And so to help them get ready for that, we use the word see and then whatever word they're working on. So if they're working on smile, we would say see, smile. And if they don't get it, we might even back up and say mile, mile, smile. And if they've got that, then we go right to see, smile. And so that's starting with an S word before the S blend helps kind of prime the pump and get that ready. After they've mastered the C snack and C smile and C slide, all of those types of things, then we switch it to big. And so we do a great big gesture. I find a lot of times with these preschoolers, making big motions with it helps to just engage more of the brain, and it helps to make new pathways even faster. Plus, it's fun and silly, and it gets a good reaction from them. So we might do big smile, big smile, and then move on to big snack, big snack. The phrase doesn't necessarily have to make sense. It's just working on co-articulation. It's just working on making those speech sounds in lots of different ways, in lots of different situations. All right, so that's the focus. So I'm hoping that you will find those tactics very helpful when it comes to producing some S blends with your kids, because K and G are toughies, and then S blends, those are another one of our big heavy hitters for articulation errors. I thought I'd share just a few in general tips and tricks that you can do with your child. I mentioned it before in the S blends, but one of the things that is really helpful is to use big muscle movements with your child. It engages more of the brain. It helps them to get their wiggles out while they're still very focused on a very difficult task. So if you can have them lay on the floor for K and G and then get back up, if you can incorporate, and get really exaggerated with it, a lot of times that really helps them focus in on the work that they need to do. If they can still get their wiggles and it's not just sitting at a table doing worksheet types of things, that doesn't really work very well for our preschoolers. So we like to do lots of big motor movements with our speech sound productions. Another thing just for you to know, that typically when we start working with a sound, one of the first things we do is we do auditory bombardment. So if your child is just starting to work on a sound, the first step, they don't even need to produce it. You are the one producing it. And so you might use a word list or some speech sound picture cards that you've requested and I've sent to you, and you're just saying those words to the child over and over and over again so that they can hear the sound and start to make some connections that way. Then the next thing you would have them do is, one of the things you have them do is just produce it in isolation. So just or t, not worrying about any other sounds. And then once they're able to do that, then you can move it into a syllable. So you can do ma, ma, me, me. And having that at the beginning of the syllable is easier than having it in the middle or the end of the syllable. So eam, or am. You see me doing it because it's just natural for me. But one of the things that I sometimes will do, if we're to that level and it's really hard, I might make great big movements showing what my mouth does. Am, big movements so that they are seeing what they need to do with their mouth. And so you could work at the syllable level where it's me, e me, eam. So that took that M sound and put it at the beginning of the syllable, in the middle of syllables, and at the end of syllables. Okay? And those are the things that you would do before you ever get them doing an actual word like mop, because we're just working on as simple as we can get the sound so that we are having success. All right? I think that's about the most I can give you in terms of things that you can do at home that will hopefully be successful for your child. The other thing that I would just reinforce is that this is hard work. This is really hard work for your preschooler. This is their area that is most difficult for them. And as some of you have heard me say, this would be like me telling me I had to sit down and work calculus problems for 15 minutes. I wouldn't want to do it. So, but a really good teacher can make any subject fun. So if you keep it fun and if you keep it lighthearted and something that you're showing them that you like to spend this time with them, you like to do this, kids work way harder that way than they do as a pen and pencil sort of a task. Sit here and do this thing. So we always incorporate some sort of reinforcement anytime we're working on speech sounds. So it may be as simple as a Candyland game, and they have to say their word or produce their sound or put it in a syllable 2 times before they get to draw the next card. That sort of a thing is great. I can send you, if you would request them, picture cards that you can make little memory tasks out of, or concentration, and they can do play games that way. Or if they're a little bit older, you could make those into Go Fish cards. There's really, I used to do with my own kids, chalk out on the driveway, and I would draw, if my daughter was having some difficulty with some S blends, then I would draw snakes and snails and stop signs and have her name them. And then we would play a game where I would name it and she would have to run to it and jump on it. And then she would name it. And I would have to run to it and jump on it. But here's the thing that was fun to do with those types of words is I would draw in chalk a snail, and then I would draw a nail, like for a hammer. And so if she said nail, I would run to the nail for the hammer. But if she was meaning to tell me snail, she would have to correct that to get me to run to the right one. So stop and top, snail, and I think you could probably figure out something for smile and mile. There are lots and lots of those types of S blends that when you break them apart, they actually have the S on there makes a difference if it's one word or the other. So that would be another great thing that you could do with your child. And it doesn't just have to be S blends. You could do all sorts of, you could do that for any of their speech sound errors. Have them, draw a cat and have them run to the cat, or have them tell you where to run. There's so many ways that you can really engage your child while keeping it fun and not making it monotonous and tedious. This is hard enough for them. It really just needs to be a positive interaction with you, and that's what will motivate them for wanting to come back and work with you the next time and the next time and the next time on it. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, if I can help in any way. If you would like some speech sound card pictures, I would be happy to get those to you as an email attachment or some other way. So don't hesitate to reach out and contact me, and I will get those to you. I hope these videos are helpful, and I hope that you are able to have some success working with your child and just enjoy some good time with them. They are so precious and so special, and I miss them so very, very much. You all take care and be well. Bye.